Okay, so this is a super exciting subject for me. You guys know how much how much I will say that meditation has like totally changed my life in so many different areas. Like you guys know I've like struggled with depression, anxiety. I was diagnosed like bipolar. Um, and I've talked a lot about meditation and how it's changed everything. Not only has it changed like my mental health, but it also has changed the way that I look at life, the way that I operate in my relationships, the way that I operate with myself. And I had lunch with somebody the other week, and she asked me a really important question about meditation that I honestly think that everybody has this question, but it's like nobody, I don't know, people just don't talk about it. And I have been wanting to make a video about this for a long time, so I'm excited. Like I feel inspired right now from that conversation I had last week that I wanted to talk to you guys about it. So everybody like approaches meditation as like, let me just close my eyes, let me just like focus on my breathing or think about nothing. And let's be real, if you're not a experienced meditation practitioner, you it's hard to turn your brain off. And if you are trying to meditate and you can't turn your brain off, what does that do? It like makes you feel bad about yourself. Like you develop this shame. Um, and most of the time, it makes you turned off about like wanting to even try to meditate because you're like, well, I can't do it right. I don't understand how to do it. You have all of these like intrusive thoughts about yourself because you feel like meditation is supposed to look a certain way. And so I wanted to talk about like something that I think is a really big key thing that not a lot of people talk about when it comes to meditation. People make meditation the way that they like make yoga out to be. They're like, oh, look at like me sitting, like I'm so peaceful, I'm so zen, or look at this cool pose I can do in yoga. But nobody's really talking about like the flip side of it or the real side of it, whatever you want to call it. And so I wanted to talk about it today. So when I was having lunch with my friend the other week, she was asking me about like, okay, I just don't understand. When I start meditating, I can't turn my brain off. Like I have all these thoughts that are coming in. Like, is this good? Is this bad? What am I supposed to be doing? And I was explaining to her the way that I have learned with meditation that meditation is simply a practice of noticing. It is not a practice of turn your brain off. It is not a practice of let me stand up as straight as I can with my spine. It's not a let me do this like breath count or breath work. Literally, meditation is a practice of noticing. And I think because people don't talk about this, everybody thinks meditation is about turning their brain off, or can I focus on my breathing, or how can I turn into like a Zen monk? Like they don't understand that meditation is not black and white. It's not a that was a good meditation, that was a bad meditation. It's simply about noticing. And what I mean by noticing is that you're noticing literally what comes up. Are you sitting, you're focusing on your breathing, your mind is clear, and then 30 seconds in, a thought comes up and you're thinking about what you have to do today? Are you like, okay, flush that idea, that thought out of your brain? Okay, cool. You're like sitting there, you're breathing, mind is clear, and then a thought comes up about something that you said 5 years ago. Like it's simply meditation as a practice of noticing what comes up for you, because our brain essentially is a tool. I like to think of my brain like a commercial. I see commercials of things that are programmed in my mind, commercials of things that I've experienced from my past. Like my brain is constantly like sending me messages based off of my programming from like my family, my culture, like whatever. I'm getting messages from my programming, but I'm also getting messages from like maybe my past, like things subconsciously that I forgot about or that I'm remembering. So it's like my meditation practice is allowing me to view what's coming up for me as if they're commercials. A lot of times also, like I like to reference meditation in these thoughts, these things that you're noticing as clouds. Like they're literally, it's like bloop, like popping up and it's just kind of like floating by. The cloud is just kind of floating by. And something I was explaining to my friend the other day when I was out to lunch with her is that like meditation is not about it's about a lot of things, but it's not specifically just about like clearing your mind, being super zen. You turned your mind off. Wow, you've like won the assignment. No, it's about noticing and noticing the things that come up, but also noticing like how do you treat yourself whenever you're doing the noticing. And what I mean by this is like if you have, say I'm like really doing my meditation, I'm breathing, I have a clear mind, and then I have a thought that comes up, and I'm literally feeling shame about a conversation that I had a week prior out to lunch or something. Like, say this thought comes into my mind. I noticed it, cool. But then the next step is like, what am I doing with the noticing? And what I mean by that is like, sometimes people will judge themselves. They're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you just had that thought. You're supposed to be zen. You're supposed to have your mind turned off. You suck at meditation. Like people start like guilting themselves for noticing a thought that came up. And it's like, there's three pieces in my mind when I think about it. I'm like, there's three pieces of me. There's like me, there's my thought, and then there's also me judging my thought. And that's like another aspect of like this meditation practice and of noticing is like you're noticing the things that are coming up, but then you're also noticing how is like your soul, yourself, like how are you treating yourself based off of what came up? I know previously in the past when I started my own meditation practice, I did a lot of noticing and observing of like, oh my gosh, I can't have my brain off for more than like 5 seconds. Like there was a lot of stuff that just came up and came up and came up. And I did a lot of shaming myself of, oh my gosh, look at all these things that keep coming up. Like, oh, something came up and then I like shame myself and then it goes away and then another thing comes up and I shame myself some more. There was just a lot of like noticing of all the stuff that's coming up and then all of the shaming that I was doing about like, oh my gosh, you clearly are horrible at meditation. Now that I've like really dove into the practice, I'm like more, I've practiced a lot. Like now that I'm getting more into this practice and understanding it more, it's like I still have stuff come up. I mean, I think anybody that practices meditation will tell you they still have things come up. They still have these like intrusive thought clouds that pop up in their mind, but they happen less and they happen shorter and they are less judgmental about them. They may just be like, oh, wow, that's really funny that you're thinking about something that you did when you were 10 years old. Like you're not mad at yourself about the thought that came up. You're just kind of observe it. And something that becomes really fun for me is that like, as I have things come up in my mind, now that I'm out of the concept of judging good or bad about why something came up, now I'm like, I like to play the game of like, I wonder where that came from. Like, wow, you're thinking about your ex-boyfriend from when you were 15. Like it becomes an interesting reflection. It's kind of like a game. Like this whole concept of like trying to heal and grow and shift and change in our lives, be more reflective. It's fun. Once you start to like give yourself grace and love instead of like judgment, instead of looking at stuff as black and white, it's fun to play the game of like, wow, I didn't know that I was still processing this thing that happened to me 15 years ago. Like you start to just kind of observe. So what I like to do is I typically, before I meditate in the morning, I will journal, and it's like I dump everything out of my mind. Like I have no journal prompts. I just like dump everything onto a piece of paper, which allows me to have a more clear mind. And then when I am meditating, it's like, okay, things will come up. And even if I'm having a breakthrough, even if like something came up in my mind and it was something that happened 15 years ago and I'm like, oh my gosh, I want to remember this. I just as easily as it came in, I try to just as easily let it leave, let it like come into my mind and go out of my mind. Something I've learned in my studies with like monks and different teachers that I've had is that like we have this attachment even to our thoughts. Like if you come to a place in a meditation and you feel like you're having a breakthrough, I know me personally, I want to like stop the meditation and go and journal and write it out. Like, oh my gosh, I just had a breakthrough about this like relationship from my past. Like it's like you want to stop, but something I've learned and have been told by my teachers is that like that's also something to notice. Like, okay, you're having this desire to like hold on. Oh, I don't want to forget this breakthrough I had. But like, no, you need to just let it go. As quickly and easily as it came into your mind, you need to let it easily come out. And trust and understand that these breakthroughs, these moments that you're having that you're wanting to hold on to because you want to be like, oh, I want to work through that later on, to just understand and know that subconsciously they're in your mind. Like subconsciously, you don't need to hold on to these thoughts or to these breakthroughs that you're having when you're meditating, because they're there, they're with you, they're a part of you, and you're going to have access to them when it's time to have access to them. So I wanted to do this video about like meditation and what it's supposed to look like. Not that it even looks like anything very specific, but I wanted to talk about the fact that meditation is not just about like how straight you can sit up in like a certain pose and how quiet you can get your mind or how great you can get your breathing practices. Like meditation is simply the act of noticing. And once you can become like very great at noticing, observing things that come up in your meditation and you're like letting them come in and out, it's really interesting because everything in your life starts shifting. This may be way further down the road for you, but just to kind of give you like a little sneak peek of what's to come whenever you really practice meditation, that whenever you're like so deep into your noticing, it's a daily practice. You're meditating every day. You're practicing your noticing. You start noticing throughout your life, even when like you're not meditating, you're noticing everything that's happening. Like, oh, I'm having a conversation with somebody and something came up for me in my mind. I'm like, oh, shoot. I'm noticing this thought. I'm noticing this like physical sensation that I'm having. I'm noticing my desire to run from this situation. And I've had friends and teachers that have like said, once you go on about this practice of meditation, it's like you're not even just meditating when you're sitting down to practice. You're like meditating all day, every day throughout your life. And it's true. That is why we meditate. That is why we practice meditation, because it's much easier to notice what is coming up for us whenever we're sitting with our eyes closed. We're not being distracted by anything. It's much easier to tap into that part of ourselves when we're silent, still, quiet. And then eventually, once you get great at that practice, you start experiencing that noticing, that reflection with your eyes open, with things happening around you, with people talking to you. You start noticing things that are coming up for you, things that are coming, things that are going. And it really just allows you to shift and change your life and be like so reflective about where you're at, what you need to work on, who you are as a person, like authentically. Like, we can't even just talk about with meditation, like things that are wrong with you. Like a lot of times people are like, oh, I'm trying to heal myself. Like another piece of meditation is like tapping into who you are authentically to yourself. Like me, something that like I'm really tapping into right now is how much I love the creative side of me, the art side of me. Like I used to love doing artistic things when I was little, dancing, painting, writing, like anything. And it's like right now I'm starting to tap back into the authentic version of myself, of things that I feel drawn to. And honestly, I wouldn't have been able to even tap into that aspect of me had I had not been able to really quiet my mind and observe like the noticing, like noticing when I feel good, noticing when I feel happy or successful, or when I feel inspired. Like I am able to notice when I feel that with just during my everyday life because of my meditation practice. And because I'm able to notice those things about me, I'm able to tap into the most authentic version of myself. So meditation is not just about healing. It's not just about what's wrong with you. It's not just about like healing things from the past. It's also about tapping into the most authentic version of yourself, and the things that maybe you have like suppressed, or things that maybe you've been like, oh, I can't let that side of me show, or that side of me is childlike, or I should have grown out of this. Like, meditation's also just about noticing who you really are as a person. So I wanted to make this video about what meditation is truly about, which is about noticing, and also allow people to understand that if you are practicing meditation, if you're trying to get into a meditation practice, please understand that it's not black and white. It does not have to look a certain way. It's not an act of perfectionism. It's not like how quiet can your mind get. It's simply literally just a practice of noticing. And there are so many, I could go on, like there are so many different types of meditation, but those of you guys that have like seen any of my videos, I really like resonate with Vipassana meditation, which is simply just noticing. It's not guided meditation. It's not about your breathing exercises. It's not about visualization. I can't speak. It's not about mantras. It's literally just about noticing. So I wanted to make a video about this because I had this interesting conversation with one of my friends last week, and I know other people have asked me about this, asked me about the quieting of their mind and how they cannot quiet their mind. And I wanted to make a video about this, not only so I can have it on my channel, but also so when y'all reach out to me and ask me about, oh my gosh, I cannot quiet my mind, I'm not great at meditation, I can send this to you guys and say, hey, like, here's the message. It is not about quieting the mind. It's not about good or bad. It's not about how awesome and how quiet or how many minutes you went without thinking about anything. It's simply, meditation is simply about noticing. So I want to know in the comments below, is this something that you resonate with? Like, do you have a meditation practice right now? Has this video been helpful for you? Like, are you somebody who was beating yourself up and thinking, oh my gosh, I'm just horrible at meditation? Like, I want to know in the comments below, like, what you felt from this message. Yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video.